The great auction hall of Varen Station was always full of noise. Merchants, traders, and alien lords gathered there to buy rare items, strange machines, and sometimes even living beings. Bright lights shone on the stage, and the sound of voices rose and fell like waves. To many who visited, it was a place of excitement. To others, it was a place of cruelty. That day, the hall was louder than usual. A new group of beings was brought out, each one placed on the stage to be judged by the crowd. Some were tall, with strong arms meant for work. Others had hard skin and glowing eyes, sold as guards. Each time one stepped forward, the crowd shouted and raised their hands, bidding higher and higher. The auctioneer, a tall alien with silver skin and a long voice, smiled as credits poured in. But then, the room grew quiet. The next figure to step onto the stage was small, far smaller than any before. It was a girl, no taller than a child, with thin arms and legs. Her skin was pale with faint patterns glowing across it, like the shimmer of stars on water. She stood silently, looking at the floor, her long hair hiding half of her face. She seemed fragile, as if a strong wind could push her over. The auctioneer tried to keep his voice strong. Next we have a rare creature. She is young, of unknown origin. Her race is small, but perhaps she has uses. Who will start the bidding? The hall stayed quiet for a moment. Then the laughter began. Too small, shouted one alien with rough green scales. Worthless, said another, a heavy creature with 4 eyes. She will break if she carries even a cup of water, laughed a third. The girl kept her head down, saying nothing. Her hands trembled slightly. It was not the first time she had heard such words. She had grown used to being seen as weak. The auctioneer tried again. Surely someone will see her value. Who will start the bidding? Still, the room was filled with laughter. Some aliens joked, others made cruel remarks. None lifted their hands. The auctioneer began to frown. It was shameful for an auction to end without a buyer. He tapped the stage impatiently. In the back of the hall, a human sat quietly. His name was Ryan. He wore simple clothes, nothing fine or rich, but his eyes were sharp. He had been watching the auction without much interest, but when the small girl stepped forward, he leaned forward in his seat. Unlike the others, he did not laugh. He saw something in her, something hidden behind her silence and fear. The auctioneer sighed loudly. No bids. Then we must move on. And that was when Ryan raised his hand. The hall froze. Every eye turned to him. You cannot be serious, one alien muttered. A human wants her, another scoffed. Waste of credits, someone whispered. But Ryan did not lower his hand. His face was calm, his eyes steady. One bid, said the auctioneer, surprised. He looked around, waiting for another offer. None came. The hall was too shocked. Why would a human pay for something everyone else called useless? Sold, the auctioneer declared. To the human. The laughter started again, but this time it was sharper, filled with disbelief. Many shook their heads. Some mocked him, calling him a fool. Others muttered that humans were strange, always acting against reason. Ryan ignored them all. He walked to the stage, where the girl was standing in silence. She looked up at him with wide eyes, uncertain of what to expect. No one had ever stepped forward for her before. The auctioneer handed her over, still shaking his head. She is yours, human. May she bring you, whatever it is you think she will. Ryan knelt slightly so his eyes met hers. He spoke softly, his voice carrying none of the cruelty she was used to hearing. Come with me. You do not have to be afraid. The girl blinked, startled by the kindness in his tone. She hesitated, then slowly stepped forward. Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder, steady but gentle, and led her away from the stage. As they walked, the hall behind them buzzed with more laughter and whispers. But Ryan never looked back. His hand stayed firm, guiding her out of the auction hall and into the bright corridor beyond. The girl finally spoke, her voice almost a whisper. Why did you raise your hand?" Ryan looked down at her and gave a small smile. "Because you are worth more than they can see." She lowered her eyes, not knowing what to say. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. The hall doors closed behind them, shutting out the noise of laughter. For the first time, the small alien girl felt a spark of hope. She did not know where this human would take her, but she felt that maybe, just maybe, she was no longer alone. The corridors of Veyron Station were busy as always. Traders moved quickly, carrying goods from one end to another. The air was filled with the smell of food stalls, the hum of machines, and the chatter of many languages. In the middle of this noise, Ryan walked calmly, guiding the small alien girl beside him. She stayed close, almost hiding behind him as groups of aliens passed by. Her steps were light, and her eyes moved nervously from side to side. She had never been free in such a place before. Every sound made her flinch, every voice made her uneasy. Ryan noticed her fear and slowed his pace. "You are safe with me," he said in a steady tone. The girl looked up at him. Her lips parted as if to speak, but she remained quiet. When they reached the docking area, Ryan stopped in front of a small but strong ship. Its metal frame was old yet well kept. The engines hummed softly, and its name was written across the side in simple letters, Wanderer. "This is my ship," Ryan said. He placed his hand on the panel and the door opened with a low hiss. "Come inside." She hesitated at the edge of the ramp. Her hands tightened at her sides. For a moment, it seemed she might turn back. But Ryan waited patiently, not rushing her. Slowly, she stepped forward and entered. The inside of the ship was not fancy. The walls were plain metal, and the furniture was simple. But everything was clean, and there was a quiet warmth to it. Ryan guided her to a seat near the control deck. "You can rest here," he said. "You must be tired." The girl sat, her small frame sinking into the chair. She watched him as he moved about the ship, pressing switches and checking screens. Finally, she spoke in a soft voice. "My name is Luma." Ryan paused, then turned and nodded. "Luma. That is a good name." "I am Ryan." She lowered her eyes. "Why did you choose me?" Ryan walked closer and leaned against the side of the chair. His gaze was calm, not sharp or mocking like the others in the hall. "Because I do not see what they see. They looked at you and thought you were weak. I looked at you and saw someone who deserved a chance." Luma blinked. His words were strange to her. In her short life, she had only been treated as a burden. She had been laughed at, pushed aside, or ignored. Never once had someone said she deserved anything more. "You do not know me," she whispered. "That is true," Ryan replied. "But I do not need to know everything about you to believe you have worth. Every being does." She sat in silence, not knowing how to answer. Ryan stood and went to a small cupboard, pulling out a tray with food. He placed it in front of her. "Eat. You need strength." The food was simple bread, fruit, and water, but to Luma it felt like more than a meal. It felt like kindness. She ate slowly, her eyes never leaving him. Ryan returned to the controls and started the ship. The Wanderer lifted from the dock, engines rumbling, and soon they were flying into open space. Stars stretched across the black sky like endless sparks. Luma pressed her face to the window, her eyes wide. She had never seen space like this before. It was vast, endless, and beautiful. For the first time, her chest felt lighter. Ryan glanced at her. "Do you like it?" She nodded quickly. "It is big." He gave a small smile. Yes. Bigger than anyone can imagine. Out here, you can be whoever you choose to be. His words sank deep into her heart. Could she really choose who she wanted to be? She had never thought of such a thing. After a while, she spoke again. People laughed. They said I am useless. Ryan's expression hardened, but his voice stayed gentle. They were wrong. Laughter does not decide your worth. You are more than what they see. Her eyes grew wet, though no tears fell. She looked down at her hands, small and thin. What if they are right? Ryan walked back to her and crouched so they were eye to eye. Then prove them wrong. Not for them. For yourself. Show the galaxy that even the smallest light can shine in the dark. Luma stared at him. His words lit something inside her that she could not name. For the first time, she felt like maybe her existence had meaning. The Wanderer continued through space, leaving the noise of the station behind. That night, Luma lay in the small cabin Ryan had given her. It had a bed, a light, and a blanket. To most, it would seem plain. To her, it was the most comfortable place she had ever known. She lay on her side, listening to the steady hum of the ship's engines. Her mind replayed the moment in the hall. The laughter, the silence, the hand that rose when no one else's did. She had thought it was a mistake. Yet now she realized it was not. Ryan had chosen her. He had believed in her before she had even spoken a word. She whispered to herself, testing the sound of it. Ryan. The name felt safe. Meanwhile, in the control deck, Ryan kept his eyes on the stars. His thoughts were calm, but he knew this choice would change his path. The galaxy was wide, full of danger and challenge. Taking Luma with him would not be easy. Yet he felt no regret. He remembered the moment he raised his hand. He had not done it out of pity. He had done it because something inside told him the girl mattered. That instinct had guided him many times before, and it had never failed him. As the Wanderer moved deeper into space, the bond between human and alien began to take shape. One had been mocked, the other had been doubted, but together they had already taken the first step of a journey that would surprise the galaxy. Life aboard the Wanderer soon settled into a quiet rhythm. The hum of the engines was steady, like the heartbeat of the ship. Every day, Ryan checked the controls, managed the systems, and charted their course. Luma stayed close, watching him with curious eyes. At first, she kept silent most of the time, but slowly her voice began to grow stronger. One morning, Ryan found her sitting near the control deck. She had taken apart a small tool he used for repairs. The pieces were spread out neatly, each placed in a careful line. "Are you trying to break my tool?" Ryan asked with a hint of humor in his voice. Luma shook her head quickly. "No, I wanted to see how it works." Her small fingers moved gently, placing each piece back together. To his surprise, she finished in seconds, the tool whole again. Ryan raised his eyebrows. "Not bad. Did someone teach you that?" She shook her head again. "I just see how the parts fit. It feels clear to me." He leaned back in his chair, studying her. "That is a useful skill. You may be small, but your mind is sharp." Her lips curled into the smallest smile, as if his words carried more weight than he realized. In the days that followed, Ryan noticed more of her talents. When he worked on the engines, she stood nearby, pointing out parts that seemed out of place. Sometimes she warned him just before a small system error occurred. It was almost as if she could sense the machines before they failed. One evening, Ryan sat with her in the mess hall, eating a simple meal. He asked, "How do you always know when something is wrong with the ship?" Luma hesitated, holding her cup tightly. "I do not know. I can feel it. Like a sound that is not really there. I listen, and I understand what will break." Ryan tapped his fingers on the table thoughtfully. That is not ordinary. You may have a gift. Her eyes widened. A gift? Yes, Ryan said firmly. Others may have laughed at you, but they never saw this. You are more than they ever imagined. The girl looked down at her hands. I always thought I was less. Too weak. Too small. But when you say this, I feel different. Ryan gave a small nod. Believe it, Luma. You have worth. That night, Luma lay in her cabin, staring at the ceiling. She thought about his words again and again. For the first time, she wondered if she could truly be more than what others had said. Days turned into weeks as the Wanderer traveled through distant systems. Ryan took her to different stations, showing her the variety of life across the galaxy. She saw markets filled with strange foods, ships built with towering engines, and species that came in shapes she had never dreamed of. At first, she kept her head low, staying close to Ryan's side. But little by little, she grew braver. She asked questions about the places they visited. She even tried speaking to a few merchants, though her voice was shy. Ryan always stayed near, ready to protect her, but he also gave her space to try. He believed she needed chances to find her own strength. One afternoon, while Ryan worked on repairing a damaged panel, Luma wandered into the engine room. The machines glowed with soft lights, wires humming with energy. She placed her hand against a panel and closed her eyes. A faint warmth flowed through her, and suddenly she understood the rhythm of the engine as if it were alive. She saw in her mind where the problem was, a small crack in one of the conduits. She hurried back to Ryan. The conduit in the left engine is cracked. He looked up from his work, surprised. How do you know that? I can feel it, she said simply. Ryan set down his tools and followed her to the engine room. He checked the conduit, and sure enough, a thin crack ran along its side. If it had gone unnoticed, the engine could have failed during flight. He looked at her with amazement. You saved us trouble, Luma. Maybe even saved our lives. She blinked, taken aback by his words. I did. Yes, Ryan said firmly. You are not fragile at all. You are important. Her chest filled with warmth, a feeling she had never known. She was no longer just a small alien girl dismissed by others. She was someone who could help, someone with a place in the universe. That evening, she sat quietly by the window of the ship, watching the stars. Ryan joined her, holding 2 cups of warm tea. He handed one to her and sat down. You know, he said, when I raised my hand at the auction, everyone thought I was a fool. But I was never unsure. I saw something in you that they could not see. She held her cup close, her eyes reflecting the starlight. I do not understand why you believed in me. Because that is what humans do, Ryan said with a steady voice. We see value where others do not. We believe even when there is no proof yet. And we fight to protect what we believe in. Luma looked at him for a long time. She realized then that this human was unlike anyone she had ever known. He was not driven by greed or cruelty. He was driven by belief, and that belief had given her hope. The Wanderer continued its journey across the stars. Ryan piloted the ship with steady hands, and Luma sat beside him, her eyes bright with curiosity. She was no longer silent and afraid. She asked about the maps, the stars, and the controls. Ryan answered each question with patience. And though she was still small, still fragile in body, there was a growing strength inside her. A strength born not from size or power, but from trust and belief. Far away, the memory of the auction hall faded into whispers. The laughter of the crowd no longer mattered. What mattered was the quiet bond between a human who refused to lower his hand and an alien girl who was beginning to see her own worth. The Wanderer drifted through open space, its engines glowing softly against the darkness. Ryan sat in the pilot's seat, checking the charts and guiding the ship along the trade routes. Luma sat nearby, her eyes fixed on the stars. Every new system amazed her. Every station they visited filled her with curiosity. But peace in space was never certain. It was a place of beauty, yes, but also danger. Many ships were lost to raiders, mercenaries, or those who lived only by stealing from others. Ryan knew this well, and he always stayed alert. One evening, while they were nearing a frontier station called Orcs Gate, Ryan noticed something unusual on the scanner. A cluster of signals flickered near the path. He leaned closer, his brow tightening. "That does not look good," he muttered. Luma looked at him with concern. "What is it?" "Ships," he said. "Not station patrols. Raiders." Her small hands gripped the edge of her seat. "Will they come for us?" "Not if I can help it," Ryan replied calmly. He adjusted the course and kept the Wanderer moving forward. Minutes later, the massive station of Orcs Gate came into view. It was built like a giant wheel, with glowing towers stretching outward. Cargo ships and traders moved in and out of its gates. Ryan sent the docking request and guided the Wanderer safely inside. As the ship landed, the sounds of the busy station reached them, announcements over the speakers, the distant hum of machinery, and the voices of hundreds of travelers. When Ryan and Luma stepped out, the station leaders were already on edge. Their guards moved nervously, and groups of traders gathered in worried clusters. Ryan caught fragments of their conversations. "Raiders are close. They have attacked 3 ships this week. If they strike here, we will not hold them back." Luma walked closer to Ryan, her eyes wide. The air was thick with fear. They approached the command hall of the station. Inside, alien officials argued with one another. Some shouted for reinforcements, others spoke of abandoning the station if the raiders attacked. When Ryan entered, a few turned and frowned. "A human," one muttered. "And what is that with him?" "The tiny girl," another sneered. The memory of the auction hall returned. Once again, they saw Luma as weak, as nothing. A ripple of laughter passed through the room. "She will not save you," Ryan said firmly, his voice cutting through the noise. "But do not mistake her size for uselessness." The officials dismissed his words, waving him off. "If raiders strike, you had better hide. This is no place for your childlike pet." Ryan said nothing more. He knew arguing was pointless. He guided Luma out of the hall and back toward the docking bay. She looked up at him as they walked. They laughed again. "Yes," Ryan answered, his tone calm. "But laughter means nothing. It will not protect them when the danger comes." Luma stayed silent, but her heart beat faster. She did not want to be helpless. She wanted to prove that she could help. That night, alarms rang across the station. Sirens wailed, and the halls shook with running footsteps. The raiders had arrived. Through the window of their docked ship, Ryan and Luma saw them, dark ships with sharp wings, moving like predators through the void. They fired on the outer defenses, and explosions lit the space around Orcs Gate. Panic spread quickly. Traders fled, families hid, and guards rushed to defend the station. But the raiders were many, far more than the station could handle. Ryan stood tall, strapping his weapon belt across his chest. "Stay here," he told Luma. Her small voice trembled. "You are going out there?" "Yes," he said. "I will not let them take the station without a fight." She grabbed his arm, her eyes full of fear. "You will be hurt." He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "Listen to me. Fear does not stop us. We fight not because it is easy, but because it is right. Stay safe, Luma." But Luma shook her head. "No, I cannot stay while you fight alone. I want to help." Ryan studied her for a moment. Her hands were shaking, but her eyes were steady. He saw determination there, a strength she herself had not yet realized. Finally, he nodded. Then stay close. And remember, your mind is sharper than any weapon. The station shook again as another blast hit. Together, they ran into the crowded halls. Guards fired at raiders who had broken through the gates. Families huddled behind barriers. Smoke filled the air. Ryan raised his weapon and fired with precision, forcing the raiders back step by step. But there were too many. For every one that fell, two more entered. Luma's chest tightened. She could feel the chaos of the machines, the rhythm of the raiders' ships. It was like a loud noise inside her head. She pressed her hands against her temples, and suddenly she saw at weak points in their weapons, flaws in their ships. Ryan, she shouted, pointing toward the raider ship docked at the far gate. The engine coil. If it fails, the ship will stop. He glanced at her, then at the ship. He trusted her instinct. With quick aim, he fired at the glowing coil she had pointed out. Sparks erupted, and the ship's engine sputtered. The raiders inside shouted in confusion as their vessel powered down. Luma gasped. She had been right. Good work, Ryan said firmly, not taking his eyes off the fight. Encouraged, she focused harder. She saw another weakness in the raiders' weapons. The rifles they jam if overheated. Force them to fire too quickly. Ryan relayed the command to the station guards. They adjusted their fire, pressing the raiders into shooting non-stop. Within minutes, several of the raiders' weapons locked up, useless. The tide began to shift. What had seemed like certain defeat now looked possible to resist. But the battle was far from over. More raiders poured in, their leader stepping forward with a snarl. He towered over the others, his armor heavy, his weapon massive. The guards fell back in fear. Ryan stepped forward, ready to face him, but before he could act, Luma shouted again. She pointed at the leader's armor. The power cell on his back. It controls the suit. Without hesitation, Ryan turned his fire toward the exact spot she indicated. His shot hit true. The leader's armor sparked and failed, collapsing around him. The raiders froze, stunned by the sudden defeat of their strongest fighter. A cheer rose from the guards. The raiders, now shaken, began to retreat. Their ships pulled back, engines burning as they fled into the stars. Silence fell across the station. The defenders stared at the small alien girl who had guided them to victory. The same girl they had mocked only hours earlier. Luma stood beside Ryan, her chest rising and falling quickly. She was scared, yes, but she was also proud. For the first time, she had proven her worth to more than just him. Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder and spoke so all could hear. You see now. She is not useless. She is the reason you still stand. The battle was over, but the station still shook with the memory of it. Smoke drifted through the halls, and the walls bore the scars of fire. Families slowly stepped out from hiding, their faces pale with fear and relief. Guards carried the wounded, and engineers rushed to repair the broken gates. In the center of it all stood Ryan and Luma. The defenders looked at them with new eyes. No one laughed now. The small alien girl who had been mocked had just turned the fight in their favor. She had seen things no one else could, guided them when hope was lost, and shown a strength that was invisible to the eye. Ryan placed his hand gently on her shoulder. His voice was calm, but firm enough for all to hear. This is Luma. You owe your lives to her. The officials who had once sneered fell silent. Some lowered their eyes, ashamed. Others simply stared, unable to understand how someone so small could carry such power. But Luma did not bask in their silence. She felt only the pounding of her heart, the weight of what had just happened. Her hands trembled slightly as she looked up at Ryan. I did not know I could do that. Ryan met her gaze. Now you do. You listened to yourself, and you trusted what you felt. That is your strength, Luma. The commander of the station approached, a tall alien with deep scars along his face. His tone was heavy but respectful. Human. Girl. You saved us. We are in your debt. Ryan nodded once. Protect your people. That is enough. He guided Luma away from the crowd, back toward the Wanderer. She walked beside him, quiet, her thoughts spinning like the stars outside. When they reached the ship, she sat on the edge of her bunk, staring at her small hands. Ryan, what am I? How can I do these things? He sat across from her, his expression steady. I do not know what your race is, Luma. But I know this. You are gifted. You can sense machines, patterns, weaknesses. That is not something to be feared. It is something to be used. Her eyes lifted slowly. Used, for good. Yes, Ryan said firmly. For good. The galaxy is full of those who take and destroy. But it also needs those who protect. What you did today proves you are more than they believed. More than you believed. For the first time, her lips curved into a smile that reached her eyes. It was small, uncertain, but real. Days passed, and life on the station began to return to normal. Yet the story of the battle spread quickly. Whispers traveled through the halls, across ships, and into the markets. The tale of the human and the tiny alien girl became something of legend. Traders spoke of how she had stopped raiders with nothing but her mind. Guards repeated the words of Ryan, saying she was the reason they still lived. At first, Luma did not know how to face the attention. Strangers looked at her with awe instead of mockery. Some even bowed their heads when she passed. She kept close to Ryan, unsure of how to handle such change. But slowly, she began to understand. The fear that had once filled her was fading. Where there had been doubt, now there was pride. Not the kind that boasts or demands, but the quiet pride of knowing she had made a difference. One evening, while Ryan worked on repairing a damaged panel of the Wanderer, Luma entered the engine room again. She pressed her hand to the wall and closed her eyes. The hum of the machine spoke to her in a rhythm she could almost hear. She followed the sound in her mind and saw where a wire would fail in time. She told Ryan, and when he checked, she was right. This gift of yours, he said, tightening the new wire into place, it will only grow stronger if you use it. She tilted her head. Stronger? Yes, Ryan explained. Like any skill, the more you use it, the more you understand it. You have a gift, Luma. But it is also a responsibility. You must choose how to use it. Her small voice carried a steady note. Then I will use it to help. Like I did before. Ryan gave her a rare smile. That is the right choice. The next day, the station commander invited them to a meeting. The leaders wished to thank them formally. Luma felt nervous as they walked into the great hall, where officials and guards stood waiting. She expected laughter again, but none came. Instead, the room fell silent as she entered. The commander spoke. We laughed at you, little one. We called you weak. Today we know the truth. You are not weak. You are strong in ways we could not see. For that, we give you our respect. Luma lowered her eyes, shy, but Ryan placed a hand on her back, steadying her. She lifted her head and spoke in a clear voice. I am not strong because I am big. I am strong because I chose to help. Her words carried across the hall, and even the proud officials bowed their heads. Later, as the Wanderer prepared to leave, Ryan asked her, how do you feel? She thought for a moment, then answered, different. Before, I was afraid. I thought I was nothing. But now I know I can do something. I can be more. Ryan nodded. That is the truth. You see now what I saw in the hall the day I raised my hand. You are more than they will ever understand. As the ship lifted from the station, Luma pressed her face to the window. The stars stretched wide before her once more, endless and bright. This time, she did not see them with fear or doubt. She saw them as possibilities. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "I will not hide any more." Ryan, seated at the controls, heard her. He said nothing, but a faint smile touched his lips. The journey continued, the Wanderer gliding through space with its two unlikely companions. One human who believed in hidden worth, and one alien girl who had discovered her gift. Together, they were no longer weak or alone. They were something stronger. Something the galaxy was only beginning to notice. The Wanderer sailed through the silent stretch of space. Stars shimmered far away, and the ship's engines hummed in steady rhythm. Inside the cockpit, Ryan leaned back in his seat while Luma sat near the window, her eyes wide as she studied the galaxies that passed by. Life had grown calmer since the battle at the station. Luma was no longer the frightened girl who had once been sold as if she were nothing. She had faced danger and discovered her gift. Yet deep inside, questions still stirred. What was her race? Why could she sense machines and patterns? These thoughts followed her like shadows. One evening, while Ryan worked on adjusting the ship's scanner, a sharp sound interrupted the quiet. A steady pulse began flashing across the control board. Ryan's head lifted, and his eyes narrowed. That is not background noise. That is a signal. Luma leaned closer. A signal? From who? Ryan adjusted the controls. The pulse grew clearer, repeating in a rhythm. It was not random. It was deliberate. It is coming from a system not far from here, Ryan said. An old system. Abandoned, if I remember right. The rhythm quickened, as if the sender was desperate to be heard. Luma's eyes brightened. Maybe they need help. We should go. Ryan studied her face. He saw the spark of determination there, the same spark that had guided them before. Slowly, he nodded. Very well. We will check. But be ready. It could be a trap. The Wanderer turned toward the signal. Hours passed as they moved through the dark void. The stars around them grew sparse, until the system came into view. A dying sun hung weakly at its center, and broken satellites drifted through the cold. At the edge of the system floated a small moon. From that moon, the signal pulsed like a heartbeat. The ship descended slowly, dust and rocks scattering in silence as it landed. The ground was gray, covered in craters, and the air was thin but breathable. As the ramp lowered, Luma clutched Ryan's sleeve. Do you feel it? She whispered. Ryan frowned. Feel what? The machines, she said. Her voice trembled, but not with fear. It trembled with something stronger. There is something here. Something waiting. They stepped out into the still air. The signal led them across the barren ground, toward the mouth of a cave hidden among jagged rocks. Inside, faint lights glowed along the walls, flickering like forgotten stars. The deeper they went, the stronger the hum became, until even Ryan could hear it faintly, a vibration that brushed against his bones. Finally, they entered a chamber at the heart of the cave. There, buried in stone, rested a massive machine. Its surface was ancient, covered in dust and cracks, yet parts of it still pulsed with life. The signal came from its core, repeating again and again. Luma's eyes widened. She stepped forward, her small hand reaching out. It is calling me, she whispered. Ryan's voice was sharp. Be careful. But she did not stop. Her fingers touched the machine's surface, and at once, the chamber filled with light. Symbols raced across the walls, glowing brighter and brighter. The machine stirred as if awakening from a long sleep. Luma gasped. Images filled her mind. Stars, ships, voices she could not understand. She saw flashes of a people who looked like her, small and delicate, yet shining with the same strange power she carried. And then, she saw darkness shadows swallowing their worlds, forcing them to scatter and hide. Ryan rushed forward, pulling her back as the light dimmed again. "What happened?" he demanded. Her eyes glistened. "I saw them. My people. This machine holds their memory. It is why I can feel machines. They were builders. They could touch and understand the hidden parts of the galaxy. And then, something came. Something destroyed them. That is why no one knows us now." The silence in the chamber grew heavy. Ryan stared at the machine, then at her. "So this is what you are. Not weak. Not small. You are the last of something powerful." Luma shook her head slowly. "Maybe not the last. Maybe there are others. But this is proof." Before Ryan could reply, the ground trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling as a loud roar echoed outside. Ryan's eyes narrowed. "We are not alone." They rushed from the cave and saw shadows moving across the barren moon. Raider ships had landed, their dark hulls rising like beasts from the dust. Dozens of figures poured out, armed and ready. The signal must have drawn them too. Ryan pulled his weapon, his stance calm but fierce. "Stay behind me." But Luma's eyes fixed on the raiders' ships. The hum of their engines reached her ears like a living song. She shook her head. "No, I can stop them. Like before." Ryan frowned. "Luma," she stepped forward, her small form lit by the pale glow of the dying sun. She raised her hand and closed her eyes. At once, the ships groaned as if under great weight. Engines failed, weapons sputtered, lights flickered. The raiders froze, shouting in confusion as their machines betrayed them. Ryan moved quickly, taking advantage of their disarray. He fired with precision, forcing the raiders to retreat back into the dust. Within moments, their numbers scattered, their ships disabled and useless. When it was done, silence fell again. Luma lowered her hand, her breathing heavy but steady. Ryan caught her as she stumbled, but her eyes shone with determination. "They will come again," she whispered. "Whoever destroyed my people, their shadow is still out there. And now, they will know I live." Ryan tightened his grip on her shoulder. "Then let them know. We will face them together." They returned to the machine, its light still pulsing like a heart. Luma placed her hand on it one last time. The images of her people filled her again, but this time she did not feel only sadness. She felt connection. She was not nothing. She was a part of something greater. As the Wanderer lifted off the moon, Ryan glanced at her. "What did you learn?" She stared out at the stars, her voice quiet but strong. "That I am not lost. My people may be gone, but their gift lives in me. And I will use it to protect, not to hide." Ryan nodded. "Then the galaxy has a new defender." The ship vanished into the dark, leaving the ancient moon behind. The signal had stopped, but the memory of it burned bright inside Luma. She no longer doubted who she was. She was the heir of a hidden gift, and with a human by her side, she would face whatever shadows waited in the dark. The Wanderer drifted through a quiet stretch of space. Stars stretched endlessly in all directions, glittering against the black canvas of the universe. Luma stood by the observation window, her small hands pressed against the glass. She thought about the events on the moon, the raiders, and the machine that had revealed her people. For the first time in her life, she felt a sense of purpose. Ryan walked over, his steps soft but steady. "You are quiet," he said. "I am thinking," Luma replied. "About my people, about the gift I carry, and about what comes next." He nodded. "The future is wide open. You have already proven yourself. Now it is time to decide where you go from here." She turned her gaze to him. I want to protect others. I want to make sure what happened to my people does not happen again. Ryan's eyes softened. Then we will do it together. The galaxy is vast, and danger hides in many corners. But together, we can face it. The next morning, they charted a course for a nearby system where rumors of raiders had been troubling traders. Luma sat at the navigation console, studying the routes with careful eyes. She had learned quickly how to read the charts, how to sense the hidden patterns of the stars, and how to understand the rhythm of ships in motion. Ryan watched her with pride. She was no longer timid. She no longer hid behind his strength. She had grown into someone capable of making decisions, someone who could lead in her own right. As they approached the system, the sensors picked up a small freighter under attack. Its engines were failing, and it was surrounded by 2 raider ships. Luma's eyes narrowed. We can help them, she said. Ryan nodded. We will. But stay calm. Focus on the ships. The Wanderer moved swiftly into the system. Luma closed her eyes and felt the pulse of the enemy vessels. She pointed toward the first ship. The power coupling is unstable. Hit it, and the ship will lose control. Ryan fired at the exact spot she indicated. Sparks flew, and the raider ship spun out of control, crashing into an asteroid. The second ship tried to escape, but Luma directed Ryan again. Its shields are weak on the left flank. Push it through the asteroid field. It will be trapped. With skillful maneuvering, Ryan followed her instructions. The raider ship collided with debris and was immobilized. The freighter's crew cheered as their attackers were defeated. Luma breathed deeply. It worked. We saved them. Ryan smiled. Yes. And they owe their lives to you, Luma. Do you see what you can do? She nodded, a glow of pride on her small face. For the first time, she truly understood her worth. The crew of the freighter invited them aboard. They were simple traders, grateful and respectful. They offered food, credits, and even shelter for a time. Luma spoke with them, asking questions about their lives and journeys. She realized the galaxy was full of stories, full of beings who needed help and protection. That night, as the Wanderer left the system, Luma sat with Ryan. I feel different, she said quietly. You should, he replied. You have changed. You are no longer the one they laughed at. You are the one who makes a difference. She leaned back, her eyes on the stars. Do you think my people would have been proud of me? Ryan placed a hand gently on her shoulder. I know they would. You carry their gift, their spirit. You are their legacy, Luma. And you are just beginning. Days turned into weeks as they traveled. They visited distant planets, helped communities under threat, and explored systems that few humans or aliens had ever seen. Luma's gift grew stronger with each challenge. She could sense machinery, read patterns in star routes, and even anticipate danger before it arrived. Ryan remained her guide and protector, but he also encouraged her independence. He allowed her to make decisions, to trust her instincts, and to lead when she felt ready. Slowly, she began to trust herself as much as he trusted her. One morning, while orbiting a peaceful world covered in oceans and forests, Luma looked down at the planet below. There is so much to protect, she whispered. Yes, Ryan said. And we will do it together. You have the gift, I have experience, and together we can make a difference. She nodded. Then I will not hide. I will not be afraid. Ryan smiled, and for the first time in their journey, the vastness of space felt less lonely. They had each other. And they had a purpose. As the Wanderer continued through the stars, whispers of the small alien girl and her human companion began to spread across the galaxy. Traders spoke of their courage, stations honored their deeds, and the stories of Luma's cleverness and bravery reached even the most distant worlds. She had gone from a frightened, mocked child to a beacon of hope. Her gift, once hidden and doubted, had become a tool to protect, a light to guide others, and a legacy that would not be forgotten. And through it all, Ryan never lowered his hand. He had believed in her when no one else would. His faith had given her the courage to rise, and together they had changed the course of their lives and the lives of countless others. Finally, as they sailed into a new star system, Luma stood at the observation window. The light of the sun reflected off her small frame, casting a soft glow. She turned to Ryan, her eyes shining. "Thank you," she said simply. Ryan shook his head, smiling. "No. Thank you, Luma. You have shown the galaxy what courage really is. And this is only the beginning." The Wanderer moved forward, carrying them into the endless stretch of stars. Danger would come again, as it always did, but now they were ready. Together, they were unstoppable.